Hello and welcome, I'm Raziel, and I didn't have time to post this yesterday, so I'm just going to reschedule it and rescript. I had to rescript it anyway. And today's video is basically the usual, how to make a faction better. But this does come up with something that makes Wild West Exodus absolutely fantastic when it comes to storytelling. See, unlike a certain game, where it's pretty much one faction versus everyone, with Wild West Exodus, almost all of them are paired off against each other. Like, they have their rivalries and they work against each other. You have the Union and the Enlightened. The Union wants the United States to be whole and as a single entity, and have no one have this outside source where they cannot be governed by the Union, which is the Enlightened. Then you have the Hex and the Order, because we all know about the Order absolutely hates the Hex and they despise it and they want to wipe it off the planet or destroy the planet in case they can't. And finally, because I can't quite work out why the Warrior Nations would fight the Watchers, except the Watchers seem to be holed up in the Superstition Mountains, which is, as far as I know, a very holy ground or sacred ground for the Native Americans, so the Warrior Nations. So that could be a reason why they're fighting each other. However, there is a pairing which, while I was doing this series of videos, I realised I couldn't do one without the other. They are so integral to each other that they had to be done together. And that, of course, is the lawmen and the outlaws. Even their name suggests that they have to work in opposition to each other. Outlaws and lawmen. It makes a lot of sense. And what could really improve both is, again, this is something I think is fantastic. The outlaws and the lawmen aren't really major players. They don't really involve themselves in the Hex or the Order, unlike the Warrior Nations, who are very much tied in with the Hex apparently, or maybe so, or the Watchers or any other faction. These two are flavour factions, and I like this idea of a flavour faction. A flavour faction is a faction in a setting which, while has no integral part in the story or setting as a whole, they set the theme of the setting perfectly. And of course, lawmen and outlaws do that for a Wild West setting. They couldn't pick two better factions for this. So to improve one, you have to improve the other by doing the exact same thing. Well, opposition sort of thing. And that is, have more stories about them fighting. There are some fantastic stories about them fighting. There's some fantastic character written stories of the lawmen and the outlaws. One of my favourites is, I forgot its name, but it's about Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. It's in the vignettes on the website, on the Walk Radio website. It's written by Sarah Corkwell. It's a fantastically written piece. It reminds me of a Tombstone ending. If you've seen that film, it's worth a watch. But as in, rather than Doc Holliday dying, he gets his mask and he survives. And we've seen more character pieces. Jesse James has a lot of old lore attached to him. Unfortunately, it's not canon anymore, but you can buy the last two books and they're well worth a read if you're interested in Wild West Exodus. So we do have quite a bit on these factions already, but to see them actually sort of add this flavour to the setting, this more cowboy versus cowboys basically, in the setting, would actually add a lot more to, I'm going to say setting again, aren't I? To the theme of the game. Whereas, aliens and interdimensional beings and, soldiers and mad scientists, they could be anywhere. They could literally set the piece anywhere. They can be, even the Warrior Nations has that nice thematic feel to it as well. But these two really do exemplify that this is the Wild West. Now, I watch a lot of Wild West. I play a game called Wild West Exodus. Why wouldn't I watch Westerns? And if you watch many of them, and a lot of them, you usually see that the Native Americans aren't really shown as much. They usually, said they're there, they'll say something like the Indians are, they're really angry at the moment, so we can't go that way. But actually seeing them in battles isn't a commonality within Wild West films and Western films. And whereas it's usually outlaws versus lawmen, Tombstone being a fantastic example of this. I am completely going to big up that because it's fantastic. You got the Dollis trilogy as well. Again, yes, some Indians are there, but it mainly focuses on lawmen versus outlaws. And if we see more stories which are more thematic rather than adding the whole science fiction element into it, and actually having stories of discovery where fighting, the lawmen have to do the right thing, where of course the outlaws will do whatever they need to do, and seeing these, build up. And then you've got the special characters like Wyatt Earp, Virgil, Morgan Earp, Jesse James, and I'm trying to think of the other. I don't want to. Well, you got Rani Namu, and she's from Lost World Exodus, and she's more of Crown than Outlaws. But when you got these characters such as Jesse James, Believer Kid, and Wyatt Earp and Morgan Earp, fighting each other, it adds more flavour to the setting. Having stories set around these guys, guys we actually know from history in their new super-powered forms or cybernetic forms, stuff like that, will add more flavour to the setting as a whole. And these are probably the two most important factions in this as for the setting, whereas the Hex, the Order and the Watchers are more important for the storytelling element of Wild West Exodus. The Outlaws and the Lawmen are more important for the theme of the setting, and if just seeing more of that, seeing like the old gunfights and stuff like that, maybe seeing something like the Tombstone happen as well. We've got a lot of the actual players available. We've also got Doc Holliday, he's available. You have Wyatt Earp, Morgan Earp, Virgil Earp. They're all available. If we had and having a Tombstone, how did that play out with these other weapons, with these better weapons? We know Morgan Earp did, in fact, almost die. He's now, completely rebuilt. And that's really cool. And so did any of these outlaws that got shot down at the OK Corral get the same treatment? Were they given the same treatment to make themselves better, such like Morgan did? Which would make sense given the way the Enlightened work. The Enlightened would basically be funding the outlaws and the lawmen at the same time. Oh look, I'm doing a video which doesn't really focus on the Hex, the Order of the Watchers. Wow, that's the first. But yeah, the lawmen and the outlaws are probably the two most important factions in Wild West Exodus, because they really give the extra flavour to the theme. Most of the other factions could be pretty much in any other game. Quite simply, because like I said, they're mad scientists, they're aliens, they're interdimensional beings, they're chaotic warp beasts, they're soldiers. Those are commonalities. The lawmen and the outlaws are very much a Western thing. So to improve them, you've got to sort of just build their story more to increase the flavour of the game. And I would love to see some of these stories get told. We got games like Red Dead Redemption 2, films like The Quick and the Dead, which is absolutely fantastic, by the way, with Sharon Stone, directed by Sam Raimi. Absolutely worth watching. And you have loads of westerns which do this, and there's so much they can take from these settings as well as true stories as well. And that just makes it what I think is going to make it improve what those two, and they are the two most important factions. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it, I always do. Comments down below what you think of these two lovely factions. I think they are fantastic. I'm really tempted to do a lawman faction at the moment after I finish my Warrior Nations. So tempted. It's got some great models. Anyway, free delivery after £20. If you want to check out Wild West Exodus, that's the best place to go, is Wayland Games down below. They have all of it in stock that you need. The lawmen and out. There's some great models. There's Showstopper Posse, I think it's called. Showboat Posse, which has Wild Bill Hickox and Calamity Jane. Fantastic set. Calamity Jane's one of my favourite models. She's pulling off an archer. And the Outlaws have Regulators, which has Billy the Kid. So, great place to start for a lawman and outlaws. I'm rambling on my outro now. Anyway, so there's Wayland Games down below. There is also Foreign Planet for, all your fun, cool, geeky merchandise, t-shirts, comics, books, DVDs, mangas, all the really cool stuff, toys, plushies, etc. There's my comics. There's one which is an anthology, which has a fantasy story in it, with Nox the Dreamer, which I have finished the story. I just got to draw up the rest of it. There's a monster story where a group of teenagers get slaughtered. Always fun to read. And a story about alcoholism. If you ever want about Little Red Riding Hood, going ham on some cyborg Lovecraftian werewolves as well, which is one of my favourite. I've really enjoyed doing that one. There's also Skyforge. Don't forget Skyforge. Good guy. Well worth a click if you especially into Pokemon cards. And Patreon, because business. Bye bye.